Hey everyone, starting off the video here with got a new decoration, the airplane hangar there. A buddy of mine gave it to me for the holidays here, so I thought I'd start off with that. I'm picking up where I left off last time. We're working on the left wing here, which is of the two wings. I figured I'd start with the side with the pitot tube because that one was going to be a little bit more involved with the pitot install. And this was the first one that I was wiring. So just trying to figure out the best path because that channel that you see me running the wires on there, it doesn't go all the way to the root of the wing, so there has to take a quick jog somewhere in that process and avoid the torque tube, which you'll see there right below me. It's the kind of the brassy looking thing. The way a couple of the videos, or at least even the instructions have it, is the wiring can go down. There's 3 different holes in each of the ribs that you can put in some rubber grommets to protect not only the 2 pitot static tubes, but also the wiring that goes along the way. Basically, I just took a jog there right about the root of the torque tube and put in a couple of click bond mounts to tie wrap the wires so that they make a quick jog out to the metal channel there, which is really intended to have the wiring run down it because it's got little holes throughout it to be able to zip tie it. And I'm using the grip lock ties. The 5-inch are a perfect size to go through that hole. And if you haven't seen the grip lock ties, they're actually kind of nice. They're meant to be like UV protected so that they don't age out, and they do have a rubber channel on each side of it so that they don't cut as part of the wire of the tie wrap itself. Part of this build, I'm putting in a heated and regulated pitot tube, which has the angle of attack, and it's an upgrade for the system here because it's going to be a full IFR platform. As part of that, there is a gap 26 device that you see there sitting on the wing top there that's got some wires coming out of the little box. And it requires a custom mount to be able to put that somewhere inside the wing in the general vicinity. And this is the area that I'm working in there. Just give you guys an idea of what's going on. The traditional spot that I've seen most people mounting it to is just to the side rib, to the our left, the viewer's left, and my right, going in there. And since I had some scrap aluminum due to a damaged part in shipment, basically what I've just been doing is cutting up parts of it and working with it to make mounts as I need them to go in, because it's of the same aluminum type and everything like that, so I don't have to worry too much about it. So I just bent it into place, or bent the new mount into place, put some riv nuts in there, and screwed the unit into place, and then figured out the best wiring. I gotta admit, installing the pitot static tube is definitely, to me, was very intimidating because it involves cutting the length of the pitot static tubes on the internal side of the wing here down so that it fits into the wing, but it's got to be short enough so that it still is inside the wing, but also long enough that you can still attach comfortably the tubes that are going to run out through the length of the wing there. And it definitely is not something where you can cut it and send it back to Garmin and go, oops, I cut it too short, or something along those lines. So I spent a lot of time just kind of thinking about it and looking at it a lot. I've definitely cut a lot of it out of the video here, but and then one of the other parts that you have to be concerned about at this particular junction is the pitot static tube sits almost right in line with where the the aileron control tube runs down the leading edge of the wing there. So you have to make sure that the tubes and wiring for the pitot static are wired and secured in such a way that they won't interfere with the control tube that runs through the wing. Again, that's sort of looking at how's the best way to do this, and making sure that you know, there's no wobble in the wing or anything like that. And this is sort of part of the, you know, partway through the process here. Then just, you know, because once I close the wing up, that's kind of it. I grabbed a PVC tube that I had just scrap sitting around, and I put it in the two channels or two ribs that run just coming up to that to sort of get an eyeball as to what potential interference that I may be running into with where the wiring was at. It's not a great representation, but it gives me kind of a rough idea of what's going on. And then, of course, you got to figure out how to get the wiring back around into the channel and whatnot. So there's just lots of looking at it and fiddling with it and testing it. And this is where I'm putting the click bond mounts into the ribs there. And if you haven't seen the click bond stuff, it's a little pricey, but it's actually really pretty cool. It's these little hard mount points that have some pretty serious adhesive to them. They're aircraft rated, and there's a military spec to them. They shouldn't ever be a problem. There's some videos out there on it that kind of go over it. And I ran across their booth at Oshkosh this last year, and was really, really impressed with the product. Unfortunately, it's just really rough on how to get started with it, because there's not a real, like, here's a trial pack. You have to pick some stuff and just kind of test with it. So I spent a few bucks just getting some of the material in. And I couldn't tie wrap things going back to the root of the plane until I had the very leading, or the very tip of the wing all prepared, and then the gap 26 wired in, because all of that all the tension would get taken up evenly all the way to the root. And here I'm just putting some of the standoffs with the pitot tubes, or I'm sorry, the tubes going out to the pitot, just to make sure that they've got a good standoff there. And then I'm just working on getting the wiring all attached. So yeah, just making sure that, you know, there's not a lot of vibration, or it's going to be okay with any vibration, or very, very secure with it. And that's what the final product looked like. Both the pitostatics and the wires are very secure in there. There's no wiggle with them, but at the same time, there's not a lot of tension on anything, because you don't want a lot of tension and it's to be secure, because you don't want it to pull loose or stretch a wire out to the point where it's no longer functioning. Because once the wing's closed up here, the only point that you can access any of this is through that little access port there. And I think of everything that I'm working on with the airplane, that's probably my biggest nightmare, because it's a very small hole, and it's a lot of mirrors and just arm twisting to try to even get in there to do anything with it. So I just wanted to make sure that this is 100% before it all went in. This is just getting that gap finally wired in, and then I'm pulling the tension out of things, so taking up all the extra slack. Shortly after I got this done, I did have the EA Chapter 43 technical counselor come by and do my first technical counselor inspection on the build to date. I've kind of been scratching my head a little bit as to, okay, well, this is going together pretty smoothly, so why is that happening? You know, is it, you know, because I read about other builders and the time that is involved with them working on stuff. And I kept feeling like I was missing a step, or skipping something that I should be paying attention to. And he was here for a good couple of hours. I showed him everything that I was working on, all the empennage material, the fuel tanks that are sitting in the background. And then he looked over what I was doing with the pitot, and he was very happy with where things were at. He was very upfront with me and said, you know, there's some planes that he's inspected and he hoped they never flew. But he had no complaints for me, and it definitely encouraged me along. So I plod along, just working on the top skin here for the wing. And one thing that was actually kind of fun, which I really enjoyed, when you pick up the wing as it sits in this state right here, Nothing is attached from the wing skin on the top to the lower half. When you pick up the wing at one end, it kind of flops around a little bit, and there's a lot of give in the wing itself, and it just really speaks to how much the skins are as every bit as much of a structure of the wing as the ribs and the wing spars. Because once I got done doing all the dimpling here and started clecoing it in, I didn't even start riveting, and I picked up an end and it was locked in place. There was no twist in the wing. It was very secure. One thing I did do is the jigs that come with the wings, that little picture you saw there, there's 4 holes in each jig, and you kind of see it behind my right on the floor there. Those are handholds, and those are meant to be able to pick the wing up and move it around. They're not terribly finished. I mean, they're not, you're gonna get cut on them or anything like that, but it's not comfortable, and all I'm doing is adding more weight to the wing here. So I thought about it for a little bit, and since I'm, rotating it around, I bought some of those little spoke or rods that go on the back of BMX bikes, and bolted them to the center on each of the jigs. I just drilled a hole in it, and I mean, it's not going to change the form of the jig or anything like that, but it sure makes moving that jig around a whole lot easier, because you can balance it with one hand, because there's a lot of weight on the front of where the main spar is at, and then you use your other hand to grab a hold of that very comfortable handle. So it's definitely a welcomed improvement. So I'm just going through the process of cleaning the top skin here. You got to clean both sides. The cleco in place. Then I still have, there's some rods, or they're not rods. They're C-channel aluminum pieces, but they go through the center portion of the skin to give it some more firmness to attach. I was waiting for some help to get the wing back up on the table, so I pulled out the wingtip and started working with the getting the wingtip light installed. And at the same time, I was catching up on doing some inventory, because a lot of these parts that are going into place, they all have part numbers and model numbers and serial numbers. Serial numbers are their most important part, and I really want to have that well documented in a spreadsheet before I get too far. And the wingtip lights are no different. They do have serial numbers that are associated with them. I don't expect to have any problems with them, but I still want to have all of this information logged, and there's going to be plenty more to come. Basically, that was just a matter of lining it up, drilling a couple holes, and making sure that everything fit in there, put a riv nut in, and then use some epoxy as well as the riv nut piece to put it in place. Here what I'm doing is I'm getting ready to just do my first fit of the wingtip to see how that goes together. I'm not quite ready to actually put it on, because once you put it on, you lose the jig function. And as the top skin wasn't secure, I couldn't attach the wingtip without losing the jig function. So I just kind of wanted to see how it all went together, because at this stage I can still move around the top skin and just sort of do these test fits without really getting too crazy with it. There's another support brace that goes in that leading edge that I'm working on there. And I'm not sure if I just don't have the right set of rib or support beams or braces, but they're just kind of weird links. This is probably the first piece that's like, this doesn't really fit obviously in one way or the other. And the hard part is if you clean any part, you typically have already removed any sort of identifying parts or identifying marker off of the part. Certainly I could have written it down, but to this stage, everything has been an obvious, this is how this goes together. So it's kind of a new one for me. And again, I'm working on an access port that is an option or a custom portion for my plane. That's strictly for a power mount, power pass-through, I should say, for USB, for camera on the wingtips. It was interesting. Max, who's got the very interesting green Sling TSI. He has those, but they're permanent in the wing, and I don't really want mine to be permanent, and the only way to really do that is to have an optional panel that I can swap those in and out with. And this was the process that I came up with. Nobody's so far been like raising any red flags, and the technical counselor didn't have any issue with it either. So I should be okay. So I stopped working on the wingtip stuff. I needed to get some more items to complete that process anyway. So I set that aside for now, and I'll come back around to it when I get ready to finish the wing off. At this stage, then it's a matter of just, put the clecos in along the front edge, and then the side, the other side, the back spar, the rear spar. And the way I've been doing it is it's every other hole is a cleco, because I want that to be as square as possible. And I was really pleased with how this all fit together. Very little effort putting any of the clecos in. The only thing that I ran into was all that entire black row along the front leading edge, which is the case on both of them. The hole's just a little bit smaller than what the rivet will comfortably fit down into without really a lot of force. So I just upsized the hole a tiny little bit, and then the rivets popped in. It didn't actually even increase the hole size for the spar. It just increased it for the skin. And at that point in time, I was able to put all the rivets in, and then slowly started working my way down the leading edge of the wing here towards the end. And this is just lots of riveting. And it goes really fast when you speed it up. You can only go so far with how many rivets you can put in, because right there where the turn is at, and I kind of went a little too far on this wing, which I'll just have to drill out the rivets. But where the edge is at, you can see it about middle of the screen there. That's where the fuel tank takes a turn at, and if you rivet beyond that, you're riveting something that you're going to have to use as part of the fuel tank install. So I just got a little bit too carried away. The rivets up to that turn, there's a second row that the spar is where the fuel tank actually will attach to. It doesn't attach to that second row. So that's why you're able to do at least this part. And even with just that first row, the wing stiffens right up. And then there's the rear spar is now completely riveted in. The one thing that's kind of fun is the row that's closest to me there requires you to go through and shrink or make shorter the shortest rivets that come with the kit. So I've got some video coming up here of me shrinking them or making them shorter, but there's 102 of them per wing. And what that means is that you grab all the rivets and then you poke the mandrel out from every single one, and then you trim each of the actual rivet part down like maybe 1/8 of an inch or so. And then once you get done with that, then you put the mandrel back in, all 102 of them, and then you're ready to go. I don't know if it's that there aren't any rivets that are that short, but that's the process to go through. But once I got that done, I did do a quick Scotch Brite on the grinder there to smooth out all the edges on each one of those so that they popped right into the holes, no problems, because I just was using a Dremel with a flat edge blade on it to take off the material necessary on the mandrel, or I'm sorry, on the rivet, and that left a little bit of a burr on each one of them, and I wanted to clean that up. So, but that all got taken care of. Now I'm just pulling the rivets on the root of the wing there, and let's see what else. Again, I mean, this is the part that you step up onto when you get into the airplane, and it's really cool when you pull the rivets in this place, because the wing just, you go from this material that's really super floppy, and you just can't believe it's going to be part of a wing, and all of a sudden it's just, it's like it's a solid block. So it's definitely very, very cool to do this part. And this went together really well too. The bottom side, when I was putting the flush rivets in, because the top side uses the 142 rivets, which are, they're not flush mount, they're surface mount rivets. The bottom uses flush mounts, and those tended to go in a little bit more difficult. These, when everything was lined up, I mean, and by difficult I mean it just took a little bit more elbow grease to get them in, but they still all went in without any additional changing the hole or match drilling or anything like that. But the top one, it just, they went in no problems at all. So I'm pretty comfortable with how square things are. So we got that done, and I put that into storage. I've got the right wing out, got that on the bench because I had the torque tube that I needed, and you'll see here in a second where I popped that torque tube in. It's been waiting. When we first took delivery on the kit, was one of the first things we flagged on the inventory, and it's been quite a bit of phone calls to try to get that part. But that's the piece right there, and you can see that there's no way to get that in with those two ribs that are laying on the table there. But so I couldn't go any further. I couldn't put the bottom skins on because the bottom skins will attach to the ribs, and I mean, I didn't need to touch the ribs, but I needed a maximum amount of movement within that space to be able to get that torque tube in there comfortably. But once that torque tube's in, it's just off to the races. Everything else was ready to go. I knew what I needed to do. And that's the other nice part about a lot of this process is once you do one side, the other side just, it's just the mirror of the other one. So the first one might take a little bit longer to do, but once you get through that first one, this is just, I mean, I knew the pain points that I went through. You don't see in this video here, but I did go through and marked out the rivets that do cross over. There's a couple of the 153 rivets that go into that channel that's on an angle that I just put in, and those 153s go into the actual rib, but they go through the skin portion there. It's meant to catch the rest of the top of the skin from the top side, and then the rest of the holes are all 142s that go through that direction. And even the step on this side went in a whole lot smoother than the other one. For whatever reason, the left wing, there was one rib that the holes were the wrong size. They were downsized one. It was kind of weird, but and I definitely had that in the correct rib in the right spot. So it was just something in the manufacturing process or something wasn't quite right. But and it was only on one side. But you know, I took care of that. I just match drilled those, and that took care of that. But this one, piece of cake, went together no problem. And I didn't make the same mistake twice on riveting too far down the line. You'll see that I stop right at that turn, and then that's where the rib, that's where I'm gonna have to drill out, I don't know, 10 or 15 rivets on the left wing when I get ready to put the fuel tank back on. It's at this stage of the game, you just kind of look at popping rivets out like, oh, okay, well, not a big deal. It's just another step in the process, and you can kind of whip those out pretty quick. Because no matter how many times you read the instructions and watch videos and whatnot, there's always going to be some rogue rivet that gets put in somewhere before it should have gone in. It's just, I think it's kind of the nature of the beast, and I'm okay with that. You can see hanging on the wall there, just above where I'm at. Those are all of the ribs for the fuselage. And there's definitely a couple spots where they're like, yeah, don't rivet these yet. And I went ahead and riveted it because I wanted the extra strength in it while I was working on it. I know I'm going to have to rivet it out. It's not a big deal. A friend of mine from local flying club came by, and she spent probably about an hour helping put rivets in. We talked a little bit about, you know, the process of building, and she owns her own 172, and she's a very smart individual. She's a retired chemistry teacher and very analytical, and definitely has an engineering kind of mind. And I'm of the opinion that pretty much anybody can build an airplane. I wrote a bit about this on the blog post, so I probably won't go into too much here, but for me, it's just one of those things where it's like, I look at a problem like this and I go, okay, well, this is just a process that I need to go through, and then I just work through it. I've never really seen it as too big of a hurdle, I guess, but in talking with her, she's, she knows what her boundaries are, and I've got to respect that, because undertaking something like building an airplane is definitely really involved. There's another picture of the handle that I was talking about. A neighbor came down and helped flip it because the bottom side was already done, and that was definitely helpful for having my friend there, because what would have taken most of the day, we took care of in a couple of hours. So now it's just reversing the wiring process, the advantage, and this is the reason why I picked the left wing to start with, was because I knew it was more involved. This one, piece of cake. Got a wire down the middle. It's for the landing lights, it's for the position lights, it's for the USB power that I've got for the wing lights, and after that it's just zip tie everything down. Except for I didn't have any zip ties. My bad, I ran out of them, and I tried to, if you look at the date there, it's December 30th at the bottom, and knowing that the holiday was coming up, I tried to get a rush order in, and it got missed, so I couldn't complete that process. This is just me working on shortening up the mandrels, and there's the Scotch-Brite that I'm just cleaning each one of those tips up. So because I missed that, I lost several days worth of work. I'm sorry, I missed a couple days worth of work on that wing. Today's Monday, January 3rd, when I'm recording this, and the zip ties have arrived. But on the 30th, that is Thursday, so it was 4 or 5 days ago, and I wasn't gonna have that bench occupied with the wing not being worked on. So once I get done with this, then I basically put the wing in storage, which is again over my next door neighbor's house, which is super helpful. And once I get the bench back, then I'll pull the wing out and I'll finish getting that right wing all tidied up and riveted or tacked down on top there. This is just, and also just an FYI, if you haven't figured out yet, I've got a couple of extra cameras for some other shots here. This is a camera that's over in the work area. I should have done this earlier, but I thought one might work. So my father-in-law came over, and he's been helping on occasion when he has some time. That he's been very interested in the process, and he's around to help when I need him. And he's actually storing the fuselage in the box, as well as all the empennage parts in his place, because his place is just a couple hundred yards down the road. And this is us getting the top skin riveted. It's a whole lot easier when you've got two people. It's such a long piece. I did the first one by myself, but having two hands definitely helps, because it gets a little unwieldy at times. And if I have to do it over again, I'll rebuild that Dimpler bench. And just because when you build the Dimpler bench, you really need a little bit of extra room on the front side of it to catch the material that you're working on there. And here's just more cleaning. This is pretty straightforward. The one thing I definitely do, if you do wind up doing this, I do recommend having some rubber gloves on. While the metal may look super clean when you get the plastic off of it, the moment you start scrubbing it like that, your fingers will turn this kind of aluminum gray, because you are definitely gently removing a little bit of the material to clean it up when you're going through that process. So all I'm doing there is putting on the structured or support ribs, and then putting it back, and then I put it back into the storage there. Went down the street, got the rear fuselage material out of inventory, and started sorting out how it all went together. Um, this is, the wings certainly look like an airplane, but it's not as identifiable as what a fuselage would look like. So this is actually when, for me, it's getting kind of exciting. Um, so this was just a matter of, figuring out what fit where and how it went together. One thing that Evan Byrne, if you ever watched any of his build videos, talked about, which I thought was definitely sage advice, was to build or to cleco as far as you can without pulling any rivets. I try to do that as much as I can, and in this case is no different. And this definitely really helped a lot because there's definitely a correct way to do this, and you really, really, really don't want to do it wrong because if you put top to bottom wrong or left to right wrong, you're going to be having to back out a very long ways before you find out that because you'll find out you're wrong way later in the project, and it's just going to be a real pain in the butt at that point in time. So just working my way from the back to the front from a riveting perspective. These all went in super easy. Not a big deal. As per the instructions, definitely don't rivet the sides because that's the position that where you see the rib structure facing up. That's the interior of the plane. This is the exterior of the plane laying down here. So I'm just going through and getting things. This is some of the easiest riveting you'll ever do because it's a very flat surface and it's just all right there. There's nothing really tricky about it. It just takes a little bit of time. So I'm getting pretty close here. Got the back part, and you'll see the ribs there I was mentioning earlier. Just had to figure out how to kind of finesse that rear piece. It's the very first part of the empennage that you build. I had to figure out how to finesse that on there. I got that on. It took a little bit of doing. There was a little bit of extra material that was pinching the two pieces of metal together in a way that I didn't really think was going to ever work out. So it was like maybe a 1/16 of an inch. It just had to be taken off. I took that off and it fit perfectly. And it's not pinching the two pieces of material together anymore. And then I just got the ribs going. These cleco on the bottom, and ultimately will be riveted on the bottom here probably this week. And then it's a matter of determining which ribs go where, and because there's definitely an order. And this is the luggage side, so you'll see that third rib up that I put on is actually shorter, and that's going to be because the luggage door is in that portion of the plane. And as per the instructions and all the other guidance, just zip tying each one of the pieces to kind of stabilize it together. And again, I riveted some spots that it recommended not riveting just because I wanted a little extra strength when I was putting this together. Was quickly running out of material, and so I had to run down and grab some more parts for the empennage here. Or sorry, not the empennage, the rear fuselage. And when I put some of the foam that goes in the skin away, I managed to hit the camera, which just basically almost pointed at the ground. So I just went to the long shot here. And the third camera I did add, because when I get down towards the end of the bench that's closest to the camera, I'm out of view, so it's not helpful. And as this goes along, this unit is going to get longer and longer until it goes on the wheel. That's what the shot looks like after I hit the camera and I didn't notice it. So I had to take off some of the clecos to get the step portions squared away. It's a heavier it's a heavier metal. It's probably aluminum, but it's a very thick aluminum, and it actually goes inside the channel. And if the skin is riveted to it, it can't fit in there. So this was a order process type of deal that I had to sort out. So that's what the rear fuselage is looking as of today, and that's the interior portion of the steps. That's pretty much done. If you want to follow me on my blog over at firstrivet.net, that's where I'm doing a lot of the just the documentation, and there's a ton of photos over there as well. And, you know, like, subscribe. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. I'll be happy to chime in. Thanks.